Hello, world. Today I'm talking to Alex Mann. He was recently the head of marketing over at LAAI, but he's worked at a host of other startups. What I loved about our conversation is we really got into the nitty gritty relationship between product and marketing and recast it not as a frenemy relationship, but a fruitful area for collaboration and improving the overall user experience. So we'll let Alex take it away. Hey, Alex, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I'd love to start with you a little bit and just kind of let the viewers get to know you a little bit more. So, can you start with like your highlight reel of your career?
Yeah, highlight reel. I'll keep it short, sweet, and sexy and fun. I have been in growth and marketing for north of 13 years. I used to have black hair, now it's going gray because of it. Been through multiple waves, from local, social, mobile to like programmatic, all the way now into like apps and AI. And most recently, I was leading go-to-market at a AI startup called Ellie. Prior to that, I was at another generative AI startup for 2 years called Landed, both in the talent acquisition space. Prior to that, I was leading go-to-market at a financial services company called CapChase. And then prior to that is how I met you, Nick, which was another time at Lambda School, or formerly known as Lambda School, now known as Bloom Tech. And got into that from working in consumer credit with Lend Up Mission Lane, helping launch the Mission Lane credit card. And prior to that was agency life, either at OMD, Mediacom, doing brand performance marketing. That's over 10 years ago now. And then how I ended up in the United States was with a great company called What If Innovation, which was design consulting, and spent a lot of time there, a couple of years there until that was bought by Accenture. So yeah, quite a rounded kind of marketing background that's just kind of evolved into kind of some great opportunities for me.
Love that. So you've seen the whole gamut here. Was there like a moment in that journey where you were like, technology is just going to be important for me and everything I'm trying to do?
Oh, 1,000%. I would say just very from the very beginning of my career, I didn't mention obviously that I had a startup that got into an advertising incubator program in New York in 2012, sponsored by GE and Omnicom. I didn't even know what advertising was when I was in university. Like, as in, that's not what I studied, and I didn't know that there were agencies. And I'd created an app that was very similar to ClassPass called Reserve, and it was like booking and paying and playing was our kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Right.
And I knew immediately that, every type of service that you could possibly offer was getting sort of compressed into the size of a mobile phone. Luckily, I did, because that opened, after we shuttered that opened doors for me to go to London, to agency life, where I was very obsessed with how do you get ads on, how can you, like, Volkswagen put an ad in an app? And that seems so normal now, but like in 2012, like it was very much a burgeoning space. And then following that, like how ads are traded, like stocks, was like a thing I was very interested in. And then all of a sudden I found myself into consumer tech. And then, you're in San Francisco, you're in Silicon Valley, and it's like companies are raising so much capital to like build these kind of companies. And I've always wanted to be part of that. And that kind of was the kind of real moment. And it was all happenstance. It wasn't like, it was kind of by design, but it very much by happenstance.
Hmm. Absolutely. I keep hearing that story of like, I didn't think about technology, like it wasn't on my radar. And then all of a sudden you've got this 10-year plus career that's just
Yeah.
focused. So I love that. Was there kind of building on that? Was there a time when you were like, I don't know enough? Like this technology is happening and I just need to learn everything about it. Like, what was your process for kind of getting
Oh,
there?
you just triggered a really fun memory.
Mhm.
I remember when I was at What If Innovation. So that was 2016 to the end of 2018, early 2016 to the end of 2018. So about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And I remember I was applying for jobs at tech companies like Coinbase and, your Ubers and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And I remember every single JD said SQL preferred. And I had never learned how to do SQL in my life.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, I need to learn how to do this, because I can analyze data, like if it's in a spreadsheet or if it's in a dashboard, but if you're responsible for getting that data in the first place, I was like, I had no idea. And I remember I paid for a Udemy course. And I was like, I need to crash course how to learn this as
Mhm.
fast as possible. so that I can get into an interview, and then if they're going to put me in a job for it, be somewhat capable. Yeah, like, there's always going to be other people in a job that know how to do, especially if you're in like a team. But I
Mhm.
didn't want to be like an idiot, and I didn't want to like not know how to make my own query as fast as possible. So I remember learning that. But if you, in terms of like the speed of how these things evolve, you know, when I went to Lambda school, there was an analyst team, and they were already using Looker,
Mhm.
and there was never then a need for me really ever to use SQL again. And it's like, it was amazing how that was such a priority for like, you want to work in growth, you need to know how to use SQL. To, well, 3 years later, it's not even on job descriptions anymore, because it's just been kind of commoditized into like visualization tools that data engineers can build for you as part of their job. So it's
Right.
amazing. Yeah, that was definitely something I kind of think of, but I think like the job's changed. It's not the same anymore. It's interesting because like I talk about this a lot either in my job or like in podcasts or whatever. It's like, AI is not necessarily like replacing people per se, but like I would absolutely screen people for competency in AI if I was to hire them now.
Mhm.
Like I'd be like, what have you built? I'm not talking about what have you typed into ChatGPT and gotten ideas from, but more fundamentally, have you built things with Cursor? Have you been using Claude? Like what N8N sort of weird sort of integration workflow optimizations have you built?
Mhm.
Because I definitely think that like the way marketing teams were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the way companies and startups were 5, 10 years ago, it's just so fundamentally different now because the expectation is you can automate a good chunk of what you can do with AI, if that makes sense. So you still like thinking about like how this is like the new wave, but also like what it's going to do for the way you think about hiring people too, I think is super important in a way that I wonder will that be like SQL where it was such a mandatory thing because you had to wrangle that data yourself in the way that that's like what we need now, but maybe in 3, 5 years time, it will just be talking to a laptop and it'll be able to do what we need it to do like more or less immediately. So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think back to like our time at Lambda together, right, where we're both on the growth team, and in that era, it felt like no code and like low code and like putting all your zaps together and kind of
Yeah.
building, building these like kind of band-aid and paperclip kind of systems together to do all this automation was the cutting edge, right? Like we were really pushing boundaries there. But these days,
Yes.
like you set up an LLM and you set up like a pipeline and a couple of agents, and all of a sudden that is like today's pipeline. It's no longer all this no code, low code kind of integration stuff. It's this AI world. Have what kind of like practices have you seen teams adopt there these days? And has there been anything like really cool that you're like, wow, I can't believe we put that together?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when I joined Landed in 2022, that was a generative AI product that was in market before ChatGPT was a publicly facing phenomenon, you
Hmm.
know? And I think back to that because it was like, wow, we were building something that was in that space before it was like super popularized. And I think about how that evolved into like my time at Ellie, which was again a tool to like record calls, summarize them for recruiters. And what I find fascinating is less that like, wow, the tools were jaw dropping when we used them. Like I remember I was in a demo with Landed with a client and it was like you could hear a pin drop when they saw how very basic LLM was working. And it just blew my mind that these kinds of clients had never seen something like that before. It was like jaw dropping for them because I think like innovation in that space was not really at a level that say innovation in marketing or sales tech has been for the last decade. Like if you think about like marketing tech, like the stack, there's always been amazing new tools or features being built. Like indie hacked their way to like really cool kind of companies
Hmm.
because it's like a revenue center, like a profit center. Like you want to invest in marketing or in sales because it'll hopefully make you money. The inverse is true for say talent acquisition, where they're seen as cost centers. And I mean, the last 2.5 years of like bad news of layoffs have kind of really kind of solidified that as like sort of like you are a line on a P&L. And so with that means that there's less innovation in that space and there's less investment in that space. But AI is ripping through that now, like
Hmm.
ripping through talent acquisition. And I find it fascinating because like I look at some of the things that would say we built at Ellie, for example, And I'm like, whoa, like that is like for that population of users, that is going to be a game changer. Like we had like something as simple as like, say for example, something like Eddie, okay. And for the record, I don't work here anymore. So just like speaking to this like I'm not shilling the product. And but I think it's really cool. So like you could think of like user seats on a product, okay? And you, like say for example with something like Ellie, you'd have the TA, the recruiting manager, as the owner of the seat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the whole hiring team that could get access to it so that they can record their interviews. But as I say, there's a whole rest of company that could be interested in the documentation of those interviews without the need for them to having to pay to come in and read it or be nickel and dimed like in a typical sort of SaaS kind of way. Like we built this incredibly cool sort of Slack notification that basically would like document like the summary of the conversation. So that like if your CEO wanted to see, oh, what was that candidate like? They don't know where to go to find it. They could just find it in Slack. But then they could talk back to Slack and the AI would answer questions that they would have on it.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
This is amazing. You know what I mean? Like I look at the notes that I used to write in interviews and I would always say, I was like, oh my God, they're like gossip. You know what I mean? It's like, for what, you know what I mean? Especially in person. The fact that now an AI can basically like really triage the entire talent acquisition sort of sourcing, vetting, scheduling, interviewing, onboarding. You know, I think there's so much opportunity in that space in particular. I'm sure there's opportunity everywhere, but just given my recent 4 years in talent acquisition, I'm like, there are people there. There's an opportunity for people to build AI products, either from the ground up themselves or build kind of solutions that are AI native that will absolutely destroy like the NetSuites and the Workdays because they're never going to be able to innovate on the products that they have. They're just too big and cumbersome. And you
Right.
think about the fact that if you did, say for example, you're doing this podcast, okay, you do 1,000 of these. That's such a library of content that's just sitting there as a video. Imagine letting an AI rip through that and giving you insight into the 1,000 people you had there. You can imagine that for recruiting. We interviewed 1,000 people. Maybe there's a problem with our interview process that we're not identifying the right talent or something. Like there's
Right.
so much insight that AI can give, and it seems so basic, but it's like it's not, you know. And I think that's what's really fascinating me at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because like we've seen with like some of our own clients, transcripts are sort of a commodity now. Like before, that was like really rare.
Yep.
Like you had
Yeah.
transcripts of maybe like a user interview if you were lucky, and now it's like every meeting, every interaction the team has is like outputted as text. And we've seen a lot of clients now just point, like you said, point an AI at it and like, what did we decide to do like 3 months ago about this initiative, or
Yeah.
how did we like how were we thinking back then, and everyone at the team has that visibility now. It's like
Yes.
institutional knowledge on the product team, and the entire organization is fundamentally like at your fingertips in a way that it's never been.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. And I think like it's you think about it as like say coordinators, like your sales ops or marketing ops. Like there might be one person there. I don't think you'll need 10 people in certain companies anymore to do that, but like it'll give people the power to be able to set these things up at speed and just give people access to far more information that they otherwise wouldn't get. I was actually chatting to a founder recently and they're building a product that's basically like it's like a AI, do you know what 15.5 is?
No, I
Or
don't know.
like something like that. 15.5 is like one of those sort of HR tools that's like, how would you rate your week out of five? And it
Hmm.
would send emails. And of course, every employee ignores it because they're like, I'm not telling you that I had a 1 out of 5 week. I'll probably get fired for that. You know what I mean? So it's like, how helpful are they? But it's basically building this AI that'll be like plugged into Slack that like everyone will get a message saying, what did you think of that all hands? And basically you send it to 500 people or how many people in the company. People go, oh, it sucks. It was good. I thought he was full of energy. I thought that was like low energy Jeb kind of stuff. And the AI will basically summarize all that into like sort of a report for like say the CEO so they can learn more about like say all hands or thinking about like, Alex, how you doing? And like checking in and it's like you're able to just reply in Slack and basically be able or like identify like look at like say Notion or Confluence or Airtable or all docs or whatever and your calendar and be like, dude, it's able to see that you're spending 6% of your time in meetings. Are you supposed to be in all those meetings? Like, do you need more time for it? I just think there's just such a range of applications that can just improve productivity without like overburdening people. Because there's always things that people say like, oh, we can improve productivity, but like it also is just a lot of work to figure out how to do that. I feel like a lot of AI tools are real.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like traditionally consultants have kind of filled that role, right? Where it's like
Yes.
you got to bring somebody in who's seen a better way to do it, and then they can teach your org and how effective are they? That varies and all that stuff. But it's almost like you've got an army of consultants now for
Yes.
every possible need that you can just plug and play and boom, there you go, and you're off to the races.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, you hope so. We were kind of touching on this, but I want to dig in a little deeper. Marketing and product are, I think, often sort of frenemies, right? People kind of have these siloed views of them. Has that been like resonate with your experience? And if it has, like, how have you bridged that gap between those two worlds?
1,000%.
Mhm.
I mean, the bridge is the product marketing, isn't it?
Mhm.
The much maligned product marketing. Product marketing, it's funny because I would malign it until the moment I need it, and I guess that just shows how important a job it is. I think if you're early stage, like you're sub 50 people, marketing products, I think it depends on the leadership of the company you're in and what their take on creating great customer consumer documentation, really what their like appetite for that is. Because
Mhm.
I think like they can live in silo to some degree. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they need to be in each other's pockets.
Mhm.
Like, look, dude, like we're trying to advertise, we're trying to acquire, let's just take talent acquisition, we're trying to acquire recruiters, either agency or in-house recruiters. Okay. It's a pretty simple target audience to find. You've like 100% coverage on LinkedIn. You know the message that you're trying to get to them. It's like, we'll make your job easier, we're cheaper, like, and hopefully product has a product that actually works and delivers on the marketing promise.
Mhm.
I think I think where it runs into trouble, where the frenemy kind of part kind of exists, is when companies start growing and there's supposed to be like kind of feature launches. I think aligning on sort of delivery of the feature or product goals and working back from that is kind of where I think a lot of friction kind of comes from, because I think like most companies will go to market with their sort of like their first album that goes to number one, you know what I mean? And then you got to come back and you got to like repeat it again. Like you got to, like as Bono said, you got to dream it all up again, and the next feature and the next feature and the next product.
Mhm.
And kind of just like a band, there's friction because it's like, how do we do this better? And it comes better with process. You wing the first launch. Like when you're bringing a product to launch, like you're winging a company out of stealth or whatever, like you're
Mhm.
just making it go live and you're just like all hands on deck. But as you add more people into the mix, like you do need to like look at it like a Roman army in terms of like its hierarchy. And I think like when it comes to like you get to that next product feature or product launch. I think having done a bunch of these now, there's like, especially at startups that have raised capital, like one of the things I've personally found difficult is like the expectation management across the board, because you're not just dealing with product, you're also dealing with the founders who are dealing with investors. And the
Mhm.
pressure from the investors to the founders is this better be an amazing land and expand motion that you better acquire because it's going to like impact the model and how you raise your next round of capital, and
Mhm.
how leadership communicates that to you is like, dude, like this, like how big a launch is this going to be? And everyone's like, we want to be like a ramp. And I'm like, dude, like this is a one in a lifetime business over here that I've figured out. I've captured lightning in a bottle so well. And say the rest of us are just trying to keep our head above water, trying to get oxygen. And if we can get customers to land and expand. And I find like with product, especially in startups, it's so hard to nail delivery dates.
Mhm.
Like we're not sure we will have this ready by August 1st. Well, what? Like, dude, like we gotta do press releases. We got all this social. We got all this like email marketing. We got all these like, there's there's so many things involved, even for startup level marketing, because you're trying to leverage every single thing you have. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, it's like if you're like launching a new toothpaste, like it's going to be on time and it's going to be on TV. You know what I mean? Like that's locked down. But when you're in a startup, it's like, dude, like I've got to get, what are all the little things that I have, the disparate elements of like marketing fuel that I can kind of gather.
Hmm.
to meet sort of product. And then obviously, look, at the end of the day, if the product's not any good, what does it matter? You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, like I've never had a fractious relationship with product ever in my
Hmm.
career, but I've certainly been stressed by the expectations of launching products and features. And I guess that's also the same with our product teams, where they're probably like, wow, I think this new lending product that we've invented or this new AI feature that we're bolting on, you know, the founder thinks that this thing is going to send his company to, or send their company rather, to the moon.
Hmm.
And all of you are just trying to temper it and just kind of figure out, okay, how do we legitimately launch this and get it, get reasonable, moderate, hopefully exponential success. I don't know if that's a long-winded way of answering your question, but it is. I think frenemy is a great way of framing it, frankly. But we're all on the same team.
Hmm.
And it's like, their success of their product, hopefully I can make success for the company, and vice versa, that the marketing that I would design or the program for marketing will bring enough sunlight to their product that it can grow.
Yeah.
And it's just, we're all rowing in the same team. So
Hmm.
yeah, like I said, the more you grow, the more the process of alignment between product and marketing becomes incredibly valuable. And I think that's when most companies start to realize that they need to hire for product marketing specifically. you
Hmm.
know
Absolutely. I love what you said about the band analogy and like finding your sound, and that just resonates. That's like that's so accurate, especially in startup
I was
world.
thinking of Pink Floyd.
Yeah. One thing that like I've experienced is kind of playing with that analogy. Some members of the band on product will be like, I think our sound is this, and I think our audience is this audience, but marketing sees it very, very differently. And so
Yeah.
we've got sort of two sounds emerging, and a lot of friction happens because you're trying to reconcile sort of these different assumptions and expectations here. Um, is that fair? Is that accurate? Something you've seen? And if it is, like, how have you sort of like gotten the band back together and like everybody playing the same tune?
Yeah, like you never want a David Gilmour, Roger Waters kind of moment, and you're, who knows, you could create something magical. But no, I think a lot of it stems from like the founder and their leadership, especially if you're sub 50 and you've done a Series A and you're like trying to like grow really fast. And that's like the real hyperspeed kind of time that most of these companies find themselves in. Is like, we need to get 3 new products launched this year because we want to get to next year's funding, or we need to hit this revenue target, and land and expand is our thing. I think, a lot of it comes from the founders, and their vision for like, we need to launch this sort of adjacent product to what we have right now,
Mhm.
and we need to like align immediately on who the audience is. um I would say that some founders are very good at that. Others are like, take it for granted that marketing and product have that.
Mhm.
So like, I would be pretty like forward in my sort of, who the hell are we talking to? Like, who's this for?
Mhm.
Why are we putting this product in front of somebody? Like, what are the competitor products doing in the space? And like, will they give a shit about our product? Like, what makes ours better?
Mhm.
Like, I think, the real talk kind of conversation, in a nice way, not like, yeah, you sucks. Why would they care? It's like, no, it's like, at the end of the day, like most product launches features, especially like if you're like Ramp and you're doing like corporate credit card, and then you're going to launch like a cash analysis product or something. I mean, it's
Mhm.
the same audience. So you're kind of aligned on like who the audience is more or less. And then the audience is first and foremost. Then you got to think about like, the positioning of it. Like,
Yeah.
why would they really care about this? And I think about that a lot because I think a lot of companies skip that part.
Yeah.
They kind of start at the audience, okay, cool, we're going to target CFOs, VPs of finance, and FP&As. And straight up, okay, marketing, do your thing. And I'm like, dude, like, no, like, why in this feature are we advertising them a feature, or are we advertising them that we've evolved the product? And
Mhm.
so has the product gone from a corporate credit card to like the way modern, like the modern banking product for the modern professional? Like, okay, like that's a different thing than just a corporate credit card. You know what I mean? And I think companies, when they skip that part of the positioning, they miss the psychological sort of thoroughfare for understanding that like, you're not necessarily advertising a single product anymore. You're into a sort of evolving brand space that kind of should capture your level of professionalism or your level of identity or your level of like evolution of it. And I think that gets caught. I think that's why sometimes a lot of companies get caught in this sort of like misfiring of new product launches. I think Ramp does this very well. I know I speak a lot about Ramp, but I think like, when they launched like their Ramp Travel or whatever, like I thought their content was so good. And I was like, yeah, like this is just a kind of real adjacent product for them. I mean, sure, like, I mean, a very, very um, saturated space.
Hmm.
And I was like, good for them. You know what I mean? And they did it in such a way that I thought was really cool. I thought they presented it really well. I thought it kind of captured that sort of like the ease of being able to book within their platform and the why. And then I thought they did it very well with credibility with their marketing. And I'm like, that is a nice way to launch a product like that,
Hmm.
And it kind of like stuck to the brand ID. So, like I think it's really just nailing your who are we actually speaking to and positioning of it because the product teams are like it's all in their head. Like these guys are so in the weeds building this thing, whatever it is, for so long
Hmm.
that they could, recite it backwards. And the problem is like articulating it, and I'm there to just like interpret it, like I'm in the CIA or something. I'm interpreting what they're telling me, and hopefully I'm capturing it. But
Hmm.
like, you can never go wrong with just like a lot of this stuff is quite easy, and a lot of it just comes down to like communication. And that also doesn't imply that I'm really good at it either. When I say it's really easy, I'm just like fundamentally, it's not like there's like a lot to really kind of academically think about. It's like duh, like think about who the audience is, think about the positioning, and try and figure out a way of capturing the essence of what you're trying to sell inside of like your kind of broader ID, brand ID.
Absolutely. That resonates with me because I always think of marketing and product as like two sides of the same coin, where we start with this fundamental understanding of the customer. And we like product takes that information and goes, uses it for different purposes. But at the end of the day, we need that aligned, shared, like psychological profile of who we're selling to, what do they need, what pains do they have, so we can talk about them and so we can build something that's actually valuable for them. And I see so many teams try to, like you said, skip that, where they're like,
Yeah,
founders got a vision, we're just going to build that vision and we're going to get it out there, and then crickets when we launch, and we don't have anything coming in because they tried to shortcut that work. And when we're coaching startups and we're working with them, it's like that is the job. That is the thing we need to figure out is who is the customer, what is the pain, and how do we speak to that pain in a way that feels authentic and intelligent, and actually it's something that they say we need that. We got to buy this right now, right? So,
totally.
mhm.
And like I said, doesn't that sound so simple?
Right, right.
It's like
It's like,
real rocket science.
yeah,
You
it's
know
going
what
to
I
the
mean?
gym, right? It's everyone knows how to get abs, right? Everyone
Yeah,
knows I gotta watch what I eat. I gotta go to the gym every day, but and that's it. It's not rocket science, but it's those hard things or it's not hard. It's hard to do over time, right? It's hard to be the
yes,
habit discipline and keep coming back to that. And so it's funny. I feel like a lot of like the disconnect and discord between product and marketing over my career has been we stopped being disciplined. We let our thinking diverge too much because we weren't checking in with each other and we weren't building that shared understanding of where we needed to go together. And I like what you said, like a lot of that stems from leadership, especially first time founders, I think have a hard time with like, seeing that because it's the first time they're doing it and they're
yeah,
riffing like the band. But the second time founders, I think folks who've done this a few more times, they're like, no, this is where we need to spend our effort and get everybody on the same page here.
1000%.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you kind of riffing on that? Can you tell me about your favorite product team, like who you worked with, and like what sort of separated that team from all the other ones that you've worked with?
I think this might speak to me being at many companies, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I would say, to be honest, I would say most recently at Ellie, I was very, very impressed with the founder, Nick, there. I mean, very diligent product visionary without sounding kind of like soppy. Calling somebody a visionary, I think, is like a real kind of like. But I would say this: like the guy had a picture of the product he wanted to build and built it,
Hmm.
and he was obsessed with customers, which is what you want from somebody in a founding position. Like obsessed, like we'll get on every sales call, we'll get on every customer call. Like obviously, in time, that's going to like dissipate slightly because he has responsibilities to run a business,
Hmm.
but fundamentally just so consumer centric. And I think about like, what made, like, he was very, very good at delivering on timelines when things were going to be delivered. Our problem, I look at it, not that we ever had a problem, but I would say like problem's not the right word. A challenge I had was like I aspired from a marketing perspective to be like rap. And one of the things that you notice with them is that like it doesn't even matter how insignificant the feature is. They're like advertising it as if like they're advertising the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? It's like the biggest deal ever that they've literally got an API into HubSpot. You know what I mean? It's like, wow. And that was something that we in our heads were like, okay, we need to figure out like because we were releasing features all the time, and it was like, yeah, maybe we need to hype these more. Like people need, because you're trying to, at early stage, you're just trying to deliver hype, and he got that, you know what I mean? And he gets like, just deliver, ship, 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 ship. So that would be like, say, somebody I was really impressed with in terms of like large product teams. I mean, Lambda School, the much maligned Lambda School, and I say much maligned in a nice way, but I mean in the sense that obviously, we're all kind of like, but it had an amazing amount of personnel in there that were actually very gifted. And you're talking about building a product that doesn't really exist, like a whole new kind of school, in a sort of ideological space that maybe like you're building a new school. It's going to be a load of haters. You know what I mean? No matter what. And like they built an amazing product. Like, I mean, it was really good and it helped so many people. Like
Hmm.
delivering amazing, amazing sort of like human results. And it was the same in Mission Lane, frankly. Like one of my best friends from my time there. It's funny how as along as I've gone in my career, we hit COVID and it's harder to make friends at work now because you're staring at people on the screen.
Hmm.
But one of my best friends from that time, Johnny, he was product manager there, and actually with Jeff, who now runs product at Ramp, like there was an amazing product team there. Matt Krogstad as well. They were launching a credit card from scratch, and there's just so much to it, from the actual like making a credit card to the actual like what the app is going to look like, what the website's going to look like, how does the back end interact with like credit scores, and it was just like wild that these guys were in their 20s and were able to build this. And I always tell people when they ask me like who's like the best product guy, and I would say Johnny Palmer, my friend, who's now running product at a credit card company called Possible. Because the guy's a machine, the guy's a beast, the guy's like Mr. Documentation, and your job is to like try and give a vision to people,
Hmm.
like present it to engineers, like can they build this, and but not just like present a vision for something to be built, but present a vision for something that can be delivered on time, that's like reasonable, that has like expectation management built in, that you can corral people into following behind that vision, that you can persuade people that may not want to be persuaded, because again, like especially the larger the org gets, there's always going to be competing factions and competing sort of visions for what the ultimate product is going to be. There's competition for resources. There's competition, be that money or talent, and so like it's almost like being president of the United States. You've got to deal with like so much random stuff. And that's always impressed me with people in product because it's never ending. There was a great project that I remember Mission Lane had, and it was called Willow Project Willow, and that was because we spun Mission Lane out of Lendo. Willow's like a willow tree, and it was like the idea. The metaphor was that like we have to decouple the whole infrastructure from Lendo,
Hmm.
and then that became Project Bonsai because we had to atomize it because it was so massive that it was like no, let's like break it into bonsai chunks. So like this little bonsai tree, and
Hmm.
it cracked me up because I was like, I just love the name change like so much. Like there was like, yeah, maybe we thought we took a bite out of something too big for us to chew, So it's like let's atomize it a bit. But
Hmm.
like that Mission Lane product team were really, really, really good. And I mean, like Mission Lane was like the talent in that organization. It almost feels like the 49ers from a year ago where they got to the Super Bowl and just couldn't get over the line. Like Mission Lane, I mean, has like 3 million customers or something now. Like it's an amazing success story. I mean,
Hmm.
people might not realize it because it's subprime credit. So it's like could only hear about a product like that if you're getting in it direct mail implying that your credit score is within a band. But like to have 3 million customers to build a product, that company formally launched. Okay, we launched Mission Lane in 2018. So here we are 7 years later with 3 million customers. And it's like one of these kind of non-heralded sort of Silicon Valley success stories, but it was. And it is because they hired brilliant people in product, brilliant people in eng, brilliant people in data. You know, the organization was effectively run by a UX designer, you know, so like really cared about the customer. And I guess, man, like all roads lead back to that customer that you're building a product for. Like people don't realize this. Like it is like, you know what I heard actually during the week? I saw like a TikTok or a reel. I actually don't have TikTok, but I saw like a reel. I love how you refer to like an Instagram reel as a TikTok. You know what I mean? I saw a reel because nobody says reel. I saw a reel and it was Brian Chesky
Mm-hmm.
and was talking about Apple and because he's obsessed. Maybe he's like gearing himself up to be the CEO of Apple someday. And he was talking about like, you know, Tim Cook was an amazing follow-on from Steve Jobs. Like they needed somebody like that to come in and just like build the process.
Right.
But he was then asked like, who should the next person be? And he was like, Chief Customer Officer. They don't have one there, but it's like they need somebody who's obsessed with the customer again to come in, which I thought was wild because it's like you'd expect that obviously, but it needs to be said. Like when you're building products, like really thinking about like who the user of your product is and building for them. Yeah, you can't beat it. Can't beat it.
Absolutely. And it's like going to the gym. It's so easy to forget, say tomorrow we're going to do it, right? And we'll do user interviews tomorrow and we'll talk to more people, and then it never ends up happening.
Yeah.
I loved what you were touching on though, where and this sort of resonated where like I think early in my career, right? It was like, can I do the thing? Can I be a designer? Can I be an engineer? But as I've gotten more senior and worked with a lot more organizations, the job has changed to, can I translate? Can I
Yeah.
talk to the team in marketing? Can I talk to leadership and help them understand like the technical challenges we're facing or the design constraints or all these different facets of the experience that we're thinking about here. And we've heard this from like tons of people now that translation is the meta skill that
Yeah.
everybody is looking for. Does that match your experience, and is it like how would you tell someone to get better at translation?
Being more communicative and um, being able to stand up and give your opinion without fear of reprisal. And I think they're using the phrase fear of reprisal as like something medieval or something, but I mean in the sense like a social reprisal, like that, like people might think you look bad if you give that kind of opinion, like pushing back on deadlines, pushing back on delivery, pushing back on outcomes or expectations. You know, it's interesting because you don't want to be a walkover either. So it's a fine line, you know, when you're thinking about like, how do you like help people communicate? But I mean, the job is communication. When there are people working below you, the key differentiator I have seen between good leadership and bad is the way they're able to communicate. It's as simple as that. Like, I mean, you know, no, like, and is the message the medium? Like, is Slack the right place to kind of have customer documentation or like a project documentation? Probably not. You know, you probably do need a good meeting. You know, like I always like to, you know, especially like in person, you know, I cannot stand when people have laptops open in a meeting. Like genuinely, you know, it's like, dude, like we are sitting here. I don't want to have this 60-minute meeting either, but we got to get through this and rip through this. And it's like, I'm just asking for some attention, you know, because everyone's got somewhere to be. And the next Slack is the most busy thing. And I'm like, dude, like, so I think like being able to like communicate what you want from people, you know, and persuading them that this is the right thing to do. I mean, it goes without saying that if you're at a startup, like executive buy-in, and by executive, I mean CEO buy-in is the priority. Like if they don't want to build something, I don't know, you're just not building it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you could persuade them, but unless you're like the co-founder with them or literally have been on the road with them before, it's unlikely that they're going to trust you so much to let you go off and do what you think is right. They're like, no, this is the product or this is the feature that we need. And you earn that kind of trust over time. But I definitely think that like, you know, I'll give you an example. Like, I mean, it's like there's so many little things that if it irritated me in my career, you know, inflexibilities in engineering that have irritated me. I was running a company before, and I remember the way the website was built originally. I won't say what company this is. The way the website was built originally, whatever, it wasn't built on Webflow. Okay. So like when you hire a go-to-market marketing person and you're like, dude, like, can I change anything in this website? And they're like, it has to go into prod review and there's a whole backlog of tickets. And I'm like, why? And they're like, that's just the way it is. I'm like, give me more than that's just the way it is. Like, I honestly need to make changes to this. Turns out they built a website and it's connected in some way, shape, or form to like the running of the actual product. So it's built on the same rails, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say Ruby on Rails, but on the same like train tracks, basically. I was like, I get that now. Okay, thank you for explaining that to me. So like, let's talk about like if I do want these changes, how can I work with you to make these happen?
Right.
And what I think is funny is we didn't have a product manager at that time, so I was talking to the CTO about this. And I think about that in the sense that like it would have been so nice to just chat to the PM about that rather than a CTO. But the fact that they were like accommodating, you know, do you know what it also actually something interesting? I don't know if this is interesting, but I think this just came into my head.
Mm-hmm.
Is it was also foreign. When I say foreign, I am foreign, as in I am Irish and I live in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
He was Brazilian, living in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with distributed teams and distributed engineering teams now, people hire people in Colombia, Brazil, Philippines, all over the world. I thought it was fascinating, and it's a cultural thing, maybe like a deference to people who are in the United States in terms of like how they kind of speak up and talk as well within those meetings, which is also something interesting. And I'm not sure if that's like baked in any sort of data, but that has definitely been my experience, which is like, dude, I want you to challenge me, like push back on me for like asking. And it's like, they're really nice and that's the way they present things. And maybe that's a cultural thing as well. Maybe I've become too American, but I think, again, I'm so long-winded, so I apologize for my long-winded answers.
Place for that.
The AI will summarize all of this anyway, if it understands me. But, it's interesting because I think about like, how to deal with those kinds of moments. I'm in the business of persuading. I'm a very expensive kind of hire for people. Like I spend money on ads. If there's any burn in this business, it is me. You know what I mean? Like you want to like figure out how to cut costs. You look at the growth team and you go, I was going to curse those guys, those a-holes are like spending 50 grand a month on LinkedIn ads. What are we getting for it? Those guys are like spending money in all these different software tools. I have to persuade people constantly. Some would say I don't do it well. Sometimes I do it well. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes things work. Sometimes they don't. And I think like it's just a question of like preparation in advance of having that conversation. Like there were times before I would just go to the CEO and be like, I would burn like social credit. I'm like, I'm just going to go do this. They're like, cool. Then other times I'm like, did I need to other times when there's probably more important things, it's like, I need to like get my thing into a 1-page doc. Here's what we're going to spend. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what's going to work. Here's the expected outcome. And I just need you to A-OK it, like put the rubber stamp on it. And I think that goes the same for product teams. Like you can go do things. Some people are obviously hyper diligent when it comes to documentation. I would find myself in this sort of like B- camp on documentation, especially at startups. You just have to go especially with marketing, you gotta just go do things. It's like, yeah, we need a new website. Let's get that done today as opposed to over 7 weeks, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think communication is absolutely critical. Again, like I said, message medium, like is Slack the thing? No, maybe you need an actual document. Some people prefer a PowerPoint. I love the fact that we've moved off of PowerPoints, I have to say. I found them, I don't want to use the word discriminatory in a way that's like, oh, it's like a DEI thing. More like it's discriminatory for people who are not in that meeting.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like you see a deck and you like, I always said when I was at What If, one of the big things, one of the best lessons I ever learned was like, imagine the CEO of JP Morgan picked up this piece of work we gave him. We're giving that client. If he's not able to understand every single page just by reading it, we have failed in our job. Yeah. So it's like, how do you communicate? And most people have never learned how to do slides. You know what I mean? Like most people are absolutely appalling at them, like the worst. And so I'm glad something like Notion has kind of come into our world now where it's just black text on a white background. it's like no frills. And then hopefully people can learn how to communicate something strongly there. And I think, these AI tools as well that help, like you've got your idea, just type it down and then summarize it and then proofread it and go, that's exactly what I was trying to say. And then send that. I mean, you know what I mean? So I think it kind of just depends. But I think communication is the absolute like most important skill anybody can learn as they kind of move up the ranks,
Absolutely. I think that being able to tell a good story like storytelling is a art and a science. I know I've every time I've invested in that and like really thought through what is the best way I can deliver this message or this documentation, or how do I, just taking that beat to be like, how can I convince whoever I'm talking to not see things my way, but to just come into my brain and like look
Yeah,
at it from perspective. Um, and just having the care to do that, just it pays dividends. It's just unbelievable. And again, it's like talking to get customers. It's a discipline thing. It's making the space to go to the gym and actually like put in that effort versus I'm just gonna bang this out. And AI I see as a double edged sword in this world because it makes it too easy almost. Like
yeah,
you can have the AI just kind of put it like you've got a message now and it feels really robust, but it's really not saying anything. And it can also be incredibly powerful if you give it like a whole block of text and you say summarize this or make it sharper, and you work with it a little bit more. So it's definitely I always come back to that storytelling of like that being the be all end all for kind of growth in my career now.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, why would anybody want to hire your services? Because you tell the story of your successes. It's like as simple as that. I think, and it is interesting you say about like AI because this goes back to like how I think about AI in the first place is that like, like I like ChatGPT conversation LLM is commoditized now. And you can see it in like everywhere, obviously. I mean, like my God, like LinkedIn is just like been taken over, ravaged by it. But you know what I will say? The speed it can help you if you're able to make it do the right things that you need is phenomenal. I mean, I started using it probably most formally in the last 12 months
Mhm.
in work. And, you're putting together like a product marketing plan. You're a two-man team with multiple product launches and you're already running like five other sort of like programs for marketing. The fact that I can like get all my thoughts down, just gibberish. This is what I would do. This is what I'm thinking. This is the audience, and it's not really in any sort of structured format. You're just trying to brain dump, or even using the voice notes for capability, and just
Mhm.
go. Help me summarize this, and it's like, okay, great. And then it's like, I want to put together a project plan. Have you used ChatGPT to have you put together a project plan?
We've done
It
it with
is
PRG.
phenomenal. Yeah, like there's literally, cause building that in Asana or Notion just takes ages. Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? And I was never an Asana kind of guy, or like not to shade on the product, but like the actual project managing tools. As
Mhm.
much as I know how valuable they are for companies, like I was never a big user of them. But once I realized that ChatGPT could even build that for me, I'm like, yeah, dude, like this has saved me hours and has increased the visibility of what marketing kind of needs to do. Like all of a sudden people can see just the amount of to-dos that are write social media posts, publish social media, write emails, like build email infrastructure in Lemlist, all the random things. It's like, yeah, dude, like that's what it'll take to launch this product. And you might
Mhm.
not even notice. And that's something that I think is like there's a lot of power there, but like, whether it's a double-edged sword in terms of like, are people even going to read this stuff? I think that just is down to like, I don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah.
Are people just going to be bloody lazy and just not even read work documentation? I hope people read work documentation. Nobody likes putting it together. I still have to think about it, share it, be kind of like you're putting yourself out there going, I hope people, this resonates or this lands with people and they
Mhm.
get it to the point. It's like, if people are going to read your PowerPoint, they got to understand every single slide. They got to like go, I know exactly what he's saying there, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. Right. That delivery just matters so much, especially the PowerPoint, but like the whole thing. Kind of building on that, if you had like a magic wand, right, and you could wave it, and you could tell like everybody in product, this is one thing I wish you all knew about marketing, like from our perspective, like this is how we think about things. But what would that be like for you?
One thing. I wish product teams and the whole company itself understood how hard it is to do it right.
Mhm.
And, I can give you example, some color to that. Firstly, everyone will point at something like ramp and go, can you make us like ramp? And you're like, sure, sure, like, okay. So there's always like that. there's always like, we need like influencers for our product. And I'm like, gotta go find them, gotta go interact with these people, gotta negotiate rates with these people, gotta get them to create something that's actually compelling, gotta get them to actually post it, gotta go actually pay them a commission fee afterwards. Oh yeah, we just want an influencer. Like, just that example of just like,
Mhm.
that's like what goes on in my head when I hear somebody say that. I'm like, oh my God, that's like weeks of dealing with this now.
Mhm.
To the point, I think the main thing that I kind of wish that product teams knew was that, like, we're not, marketing is never a frenemy to this. It's just like, you know, they strive for product. We are all striving for product market fit, but the
Yeah.
product needs to land. At the end of the day, like, I can put an ad in front of somebody, I can put an email in front of somebody, I can buy a billboard, I can do whatever, budget, no budget, whatever. We'll figure out a way to market that product.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, like, if it's not any good, you could spend all the money you want on marketing in the world until you become Workday or NetSuite, then it's fine. But you know what I mean? In the sense that, like, if you're trying to scale a startup, like, there's something to be said for, like, a great product is your marketing.
Right.
I mean, I read today that Versal was like $200 million revenue business or something, and that, like, all these, like, there's something I read today, and I was like, I only ever saw Versal because a lot of people from Lambda School went there
Yep.
after Lambda School,
Mhm.
and I'm like, talk about amazing success story. And that is all ambassador and advocates who use the product and talk about it and refer it to other people. That's
Mhm.
amazing. I would dream of those where you have like such a strong like grip on your users because they love it.
Mhm.
And I wish marketing teams knew that, like, or product teams and companies knew that, like, I would love that too, but it comes from a great product.
Mhm.
Like, if they can build something great, the customers will come, whether there's any formal marketing or not behind it.
Right. Absolutely. I always tell teams you can't multiply by zero, right? You multiply by zero, it doesn't matter how great our marketing effort is. We got nothing at the end of the day. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
how I like to frame that. So I love that. That resonates 100% with everything we've been doing. Well, I know we're coming up to the end here. So if there's something that you want everybody tuning in to go check out, either something you're working on or like the best thing you've seen recently.
Oh my God, the best thing I've seen recently. I mean, I've been seeing so many different AI tools at the moment, and I'm fascinated. There's a tool called Lunos.ai that's like doing like kind of like an accounts receivable AI, and I'm like, oh, good for them. That's an unheralded space. You know what I mean? And it's like they can build a product there where they rip through that. I think that's pretty cool. And frankly, I think like I've been looking a lot of like N8N stuff just for my own sort of like upskilling,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, I am very excited by that. I think that's a kind of, I'm not necessarily here thinking like, how can I make a business out of something like N8N? I think that like applying tools like that and that kind of thinking to your business is like such an edge.
Mhm.
Like Clay.com 2 years ago for me changed, honestly, they don't even realize this, but it changed the trajectory of my career. You know what I mean? That one tool
Mhm.
brought me into a whole new discipline of marketing. And I think like NLN might probably do the same. There's just like amazing tools at the moment, and I'm very, very excited. Yeah. So yeah, not a good answer, but I'm
No,
just very excited in general. I'm just super happy.
it's a great answer. Now I got stuff to check out, which is awesome. Well,
Yeah,
Alex, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure as always, and can't wait to hopefully have you on again someday.
you're a legend. And it's great to catch up.